media and really asking the question, dude, have either of you parties lived in both to really understand both perspectives, right? And have a point of view. So, born as, and I know, so this is where we're gonna start getting a little juicy, right? And it might seem a little controversial. And this is just kind of therapeutic for us, I feel. Mm-hmm. So at Clark, or at Lily Hill Middle School, Wagner, or wherever you went, I think the biggest segregation was if you were straight Filipino, Philippines, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to use this acronym, fresh off the boat, right? Mm-hmm. If you were Filipino, at that time we didn't know what it was. Now it's called Filipino X. Filipino something. You weren't born in the Philippines, you weren't raised as Filipinos. So we're gonna kind of start diving into that. So Joanne, in your mind, what do you consider yourself as? Filipino X / Filipino-American or Filipino?
I think I'm Filipino-American, just because I'm kind of grew up half and half, where like I wasn't born in the Philippines, but I was raised in the traditions of all the Filipino cultures and all that kind of stuff, because I had family that were able to teach me that. And my first language is English, right? And everything else came after. And then just, because I was born in Las Vegas, so I think I would say I'm more Filipino-American. But having those traditions and growing with your grandparents there and your family and your cousins, I mean, you pick that up. And then just being there for so long, knowing the traditional foods, the clothing, the history, the holidays, I mean, I don't think any of the kids nowadays can relate to that, you know? I mean, and that's where she was saying it could be controversial, because yes, these kids, I would say millennials, sorry, but that's what it is.
Or is it Gen Z?
Gen Z now? Something like that.
Well, my kid's Gen Z.
Yeah. And then, I mean, these kids now are not really outdoorsy kind of kids. They're online. They do things or research online. They're techie kids. And it's like, I mean, I just feel like, they're missing out. It's just so much stuff that you miss out on, as far as what's out there in the history, the traditions, and your own culture. I say, having to represent Filipino culture, I can say I can, because I was half raised there.
I feel like we lived there.
But if you never grew up there and you weren't born there and you were here, and maybe it's parenting, I don't know, it's like that would be difficult to represent. You could represent your ethnicity, I would say, like you're a Filipino, but having to represent the culture, you have to learn it.
I feel like for those of us that say, for folks that say, oh, you're Filipino-American because you lived on an American base, that might be a label, but I don't think that was our lifestyle.
Right.
Yes, did my parents want us to learn the ways of being American, to assimilate and have a better life for us? They did. But they also taught us the value. Actually, they didn't even need to teach us, because I think we were naturally in that environment, being in the Philippines.
Being in the Philippines.
Being in the Philippines, you're naturally in that environment, and you get to learn and respect and know both sides.
Well, what's funny to me is, like, I mean, our kids, even though they're half Filipino, and my son's never been to the Philippines, but I always joke around, like, with our classmates that went to school with us, like, who are African American, who are white or whatever. They're like, yeah, but I'm not Filipino. I go, you're more Filipino than my kid is, though, because you lived there.
We did have,
like, but to us, like, I feel like even though, because we felt like when we went to school, everybody was freaking Filipino. Didn't matter what color skin was.
Yes, and
because you were just like,
awesome.
Man, you were Filipino, and you always will be, because you know the culture, like,
perfect example, Shandi, love you, girl, because I know you don't have any Filipino in you, but I think you were considered a Filipino. You lived in the Philippines, girl, because you knew how to ride a trike. You speak Filipino. You rode the damn jeepney. Girl, she's full African American. Shandi Hudson, girl, shout out to you. We love you. Hopefully you can make the reunion next year. But I just feel like if you had the opportunity to live in the Philippines, and really understand and
Yeah.
immerse yourself in the culture, whether you're coming from a Filipino-American or a Filipino military background, you truly are Filipino. So I guess to segue into this, it's hard to hear the conversations that are happening online about Filipino Americans versus Filipinos, because I feel like those that might be having some commentary about that, did they really live in the Philippines / did they really live in America to understand where we're coming from?
But it's like what I was telling Joanne yesterday is we know where our lane is. We know that if we were to go in the Philippines, we know they see us as Americans.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They don't see us.
Yeah.
They see us as yes, you're Filipino, but they see us American
more
Filipino.
Americanized.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've had cousins that tell me, you smell different. Your suitcase smells different. And
Ang bawi mo iba.
you just smell different from all of us. I'm like, I do? I mean, I don't know, but
Like
you're,
we know
you know.
where our lane is. We
Yes.
know that when we go to the Philippines, that we stand out. Like no matter how black our hair is, how brown our skin is, and
Yes.
how they
It was
still
always
can
a
tell
little bit
you're still
different.
different.
Yep. I kind of hated that. So we had a recent trip with my family back in 2017, where I know. So like I said, this is probably a pretty delicate, sensitive subject. You know, when we lived here, we had, I don't want to say katulong, not katulong. We had family that lived to help us, right, in the household, but they would always like help us with stuff, and I really didn't pay attention to it when I was younger. When I went back to the Philippines in 2017, I didn't like that. I didn't like the whole, being treated with extra additional service.
Just because we were American.
Yeah, because we were Filipino American. I kind of felt embarrassed because I didn't want that. I remember we were in the province in La Union, and she made utos to like one of the my mom, one of the little nephews. Anak, go get us pandesal in Ilocano, right? It's like, Mom, you don't need to have them go get pandesal. We have our own feet. Me and my brother can go walk down 2 blocks to go get pandesal ourselves. I'm like, they don't need to like wait on us hand and foot. I was like, we were taught to be independent.
You're right, because you know what?
Right?
Even when
I was kind of embarrassed.
when I was in the Philippines
So,
and we
I
had
didn't like
maids,
that.
my family had katulong as well.
Yeah.
But I still had to help the katulong. Like it was like I
Yes.
still had to help them wash clothes and
Yes.
sweep and clean my room and what things like. I'm like, well, okay, so. I mean, maybe that's part of parenting. I don't know. I mean, it might not just be you have a katulong because you live in the Philippines.
Well, I think it feels
or
weird
just
to us because you're calling somebody who. Okay, so it's one thing to be like, hey, I'm gonna send my son to the store to go grab this.
Yes.
Send my nephew to go grab
You
this.
do that now here in the States.
Right.
And it's nothing.
But it's one thing to feel like I'm too American to go do this myself.
Yes.
So you go do it for me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
And I feel like there's I think if anything, if I'm having a little like conflict with our ethnicity, it's about that. And I know what it is. Like
But you
and
know
like I
what?
said, you can cancel me, right? You go to the Philippines, they're all about being doñas, right?
but it goes
I don't do the doña attitude. I'm sorry. I can do shit
No.
myself. Right? My parents raised us to be independent, do shit ourselves, because when you come to America, that's what it is. You don't have any katulong. You gotta grind, right? You gotta grind to get where you're
maybe
at.
that might be a different
and that
for
might
everyone.
be a different a little bit
I
of what's
mean, I have a
changing in our
cousin,
culture.
and she's
right?
definitely a diva. So I mean, the refrigerator's right there. Can you go get me some water, please? We're like, can you
bitch,
go get
go
it yourself? The
walk
water,
over
the refrigerator's
5
out
steps.
there, right there next to you.
But
You
it's
ain't
like
gotta get your maid to get it.
It's a double-edged sword though, because I remember when I was little, when we lived there, your cousins are like, oh, she's American.
Let me help.
No, it's not even that. It's she has everything. Well, our parents, they were American, but they were in the military. They
Yes.
don't make a lot of money. I mean, they make money more
Yes.
compared to what they made in the
That
Philippines.
might be
but
so because you have a parent that's a military,
And you get
they
the
might-
benefits.
You
Yeah,
get that
but-
benefit
And they
of having
think that translates
But-
to money,
yeah,
but that's
so-
not the
so
thing. You don't
I
see
used to
it.
hate it as a kid when I would go to the province to go visit my family, and my uncle would be like, "Oh, we don't have a radio. You want to give us your radio?" And I'm like, "But this is my radio. I have to wait for Christmas to get this radio. Like, I had to be good, can kiss butt for like 6 weeks to get this radio, but because you think that we're rich and I get whatever the heck I want, I should just give my cousins my radio.
Yes.
You know, and it's a double-edged sword because if you're like, no, I don't want to give my radio,
then
they
they're
look
gonna
at you like,
they look like you're like disrespect
You're
them.
assuming,
Yeah.
you're assuming,
Yeah.
or
You're
matalika.
Yeah.
You're such a like
So it's a
stuck
double,
up
it's
pretty
a double-edged
It is
secret.
a
sword.
double-edged
They
sword
want to
for
treat
sure.
you. We feel bad for treating them that way, but at the same time, they're just like, well, you owe us something.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's tough.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a tough fine line conversation.
I know.
I mean, yeah, but it's such a rewarding to see when we did do a reunion last year in Florida, to see so many ethnicity and nationalities that really know our culture more than we know our own culture.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, like,
you know, we just
Like
it
I
was
said,
nice.
it felt like it didn't matter what anybody's
Race,
ethnicity was
was.
at the reunion in 2019 because everybody just felt Filipino.
right?
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
there was no, oh my God, there's a black guy doing the tinickling. Oh my God, look at him. No, fool. It was like, do that dude doing the tinickling better than I can.
That's what I'm saying. He lived it.
You know what I mean?
He lived
Like
it.
there's no like, oh my God, there's no way that person can do that because they're not
Yeah.
Filipino. It just felt like everybody there was fucking
was
Filipino.
it was
I
united.
know
It was
my
one.
language.
Yeah, it was definitely.
All right.